banks of the Colorado River in Lake Mead to the homes and businesses in Southern Nevada, welcome to Water Smarts, the podcast pumping from the heart of Las Vegas, where we engage with the experts who keep the water flowing throughout Southern Nevada. I'm Bronson Mack.
And I'm Zuelke. From how we treat it, deliver it, use it, protect it, and conserve it, the Water Smarts podcast is all about water in Southern Nevada. We hope to make you a little smarter about the one thing that keeps us all connected: water.
Crystal, hey, it's another day here on the Water Smarts podcast. How you doing?
It is another day. I'm doing good. Spring is upon us. We're starting to warm up already. It just seems like we ended summer.
I know, and it's been a mild winter. And when you said spring is upon us, it just took me back for a moment because my mom used to have this sign. My mom used to change out this little sign in her front yard depending on the holiday. So like she had a 4th of July sign or, Christmas sign or whatever. And the one that she had for spring had a bumblebee on it. And it said, "Spring is a buzzin'." And so that's like anytime spring rolls around, that's what our family always says. Just kind of little nudge on my mom's yard sign. "Spring is a buzzin'."
That's cute. Spring is a buzzing. Well, with spring, it's the time of year everybody starts thinking about planting. And spring is one of the best seasons here, spring and fall, to plant in Southern Nevada. And we've got our big popular annual plant sale coming up at the Springs Preserve on March 28th. So it's a great opportunity for people to get out and talk to the experts and see the best locally grown and desert adapted plants for our yards. So, yeah.
And those are affordable plants. They are desert adapted plants. Hey, put some more diversity, some more variety into your yard. And because it is spring, or at least spring is around the corner, and we're talking a little bit and thinking a little bit more about our landscapes, today joining us to share her expertise is Joey Lynn from Star Nursery. Joey Lynn is a local horticultural expert and an arborist, and she's going to share her knowledge and expertise on how to maintain a thriving garden and a beautiful landscape in this warm desert environment that we have. Joey Lynn, welcome back to the Water Smarts podcast.
Well, thank you, Bronson and Crystal. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for inviting me. This is our super season. Spring is the best season. Everybody's extremely excited, and I appreciate the opportunity that we can really kind of button down some do's and don'ts right now.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want to talk about. You are right. Spring is a buzzin', as the sign in my mom's front yard used to say. Joey Lynn, you've obviously joined us here quite a few times on the Water Smarts podcast, and we really enjoy having you here because you're so enthusiastic about gardening in the Mojave Desert. So let's just start with some of the basics. What are some steps that people can do to prepare their yards, prepare their gardens for this upcoming spring season as we begin to hurl towards summer?
A simple walkabout. Walk around the yard. Take inventory of what is working, what isn't working. I cannot express enough the importance of knowing the plants that you have in your yard, seeing how they have been responding through the seasons. We're going to talk probably a lot about irrigation, but that is the foundation for everything, is understanding how automatic irrigation system works and if it is actually functioning. And then how does the soil respond? If we have a dry, compact soil, it is not going to absorb whatever amount of water you provide. So understanding the soil, knowing the type of plants. So really just getting out, not only enjoying the beautiful change in the season, but observe your environment and your yard and get to know what you have first. Then once you have that, then you can build upon that and you can make the decisions. But a walkabout is definitely the most important thing.
Joey Lynn, there's like certain things that should be taken care of certain times of the year. And I think pruning is one of those. And that I think that often gets overlooked, but it is something that you should probably do. I think in late winter, right? People don't always realize how important it is to prune and how to prune correctly. And I've seen some pretty extreme examples out there, and I'm sure you have too, like trees cut down to little stubs. I think those are called tree topping. I remember Lynn Mills, horticulturist Lynn Mills, he used to call the ones that were real rounded lollipop pruning. So those may not be ideal. but I'm not someone who knows how to prune very well myself. So help us out here. What's the general rule when it comes to pruning? How do you know how much to cut back and when is it just too much?
Well, Lynn Mills, fabulous local superstar horticulturist that has taught us so much and has really created a great foundation for education here in the Valley. So he absolutely taught us the do's and don'ts and rights. Topping is a very, very stressful approach to pruning. People in the valley that have had trees that are mature for 50 years, that practice still happens because it's this passed on thought that that's the proper way to prune a deciduous tree. And it absolutely is not. And the mulberries down here in the valley are what are typically heavily pruned back that way. And they get these little nubs. And then the tree has to automatically try to put on a growth response. So topping is always bad. Pruning that after a tree is pruned and it looks like a coat rack, that's also really bad. We should never have any blunt end stubs. The reason that we always talk about it in January is because the majority of the plants that go dormant, they're deciduous, they have lost their leaves and you can see their structure. But now that we're moving into spring, that is absolutely the wrong time to be pruning some plants because they've already started to put on some leaf or they're starting to put on their flower blossoms if it's a fruit tree. And if we do the improper pruning now, we're going to lose our harvest or we're going to miss out on the spring blooms. And we're going to put that tree or that shrub in a deficit going into summer. And it's just going to just domino effect and compound the issues. So for spring pruning, we always think about what that plant's job is. If that plant's job is to just put on green leaves, then we just need to shape it maybe. We just need to kind of remove any old, big, thick branching that really isn't producing much anymore. Get rid of anything that is broken or diseased, anything that clouds that inside and makes it so that the sun can't get in there. That's what we do in the spring. The majority of the pruning should not be done at this point anymore. If you are going to prune a tree, the standard is about 20%. There are some trees that can tolerate up to 30%. At 30%, you're really putting a tree in a stressful situation. A tree that has been improperly pruned at 30% or more really doesn't have the canopy to put on any real good leaf quality to support the roots, and the tree actually immediately goes into distress. So a shrub, we can get away with about 20-25%. A tree at this time and in this season, we want to stick around 15 to 20%. So that means we take a look at the whole canopy and we don't just reduce by height. We're going to get in the inside. We're going to kind of thin it out a little bit and open it up. And we want to see that wind can pass, because if these winds continue, which they're going to, we have a lot of failure that happens because the branches are too dense. Removing that, that's all part of your 15 to 20% in your pruning back.
So just careful pruning this time of year. This isn't the optimal time to cut back those trees. You do the walkabout, refamiliarize yourself with your landscape. If I don't know exactly what plant I have in my landscape, I assume, Joey Lynn, that I can maybe bring a sprig or a couple of leaves from that plant on into Star Nursery, and your staff can help me match that up and make sure I know exactly which plants I have?
Absolutely. Every Star Nursery has outdoor salespeople that are extremely experienced in this. And they are at the information booth at all Star Nursery locations. Also, anybody can email me a picture at housecalls@starnursery.com. I answer all those emails directly. There are some really good apps. However, I would be cautious in using them They're usually not specific to your region. So it gets a little kind of murky, and that's always user updated. Somebody could put in a plant and label it wrong, and that just continues to give out wrong information. But also Springs Preserve, you have a great resource there. The thing that's nice about going into Springs Preserve or Star Nursery is you're going to see the plant yourself as well. And you're going to get familiar with the leaf structure, the smell, the color. You're going to walk around. You're going to learn so much. So being an active learner in this is always really great.
One of the other key things with that walkabout that you talked about is irrigation. From my experience, I watched my irrigation system, turn my irrigation system on a manual run, and then sit there and watch it, see how much of that water gets absorbed, how quickly it gets absorbed, or if it gets absorbed at all. And Joey Lynn, people don't necessarily notice, if they've got an irrigation issue or if their plant is having a hard time taking up water until that plant or that tree already looks stressed. So can you give our listeners just some quick tips on what to do when you check that irrigation system, and maybe making some basic repairs? What are the kind of things we need to look for?
Very first thing that you should do is find your irrigation controller or the clock. With newer homes, it's in the garage, but it could also be in a protected environment outside, and get to know it. If it's a smart clock and it's on Wi-Fi, a software update may be necessary. If you have a clock that's an old dial clock, consider upgrading it. We have a great partnership with Southern Nevada Water Authority and the rebate program. We actually honor the rebate at our register so that you get that rebate right away. Just go on to the rebate application, fill out the information, and bring it in with you. Our irrigation specialists will guide you to which model that applies to. These smart timers are really phenomenal. You still get the opportunity to do your specific timing, but it's going to help keep you in line with your watering restrictions and when that happens, and you can update it easily. But run a manual cycle. If you run a manual cycle, you want to listen and make sure that everything is running. You can hear that water running through the valve, and open up a valve box. From the timer, that electric current triggers a valve. In the ground, very close to where that timer is, there's going to be a valve box. Open it up. When it's running, observe if there's any leaks or any issues inside. If you don't hear that valve hissing and water running through it, then your problem could be at the valve. Then, as it's running, follow each station. Make sure that the water is functioning. If it's running, if you're hearing that you've got spitting and it's not quite enough water getting out, that you can see the emitters giving a nice constant drip, you might have a clogged emitter, you might have a broken line somewhere, and you just need to simply repair or even cap it off. You might have places that you see pooling water and there's not even a plant there anymore. At that time, that's when you make all of these adjustments so that your watering can be efficient. A plant is going to need a lot less emitters than a tree. So when you do your walkabout, walk the perimeter with all of your drip irrigation. And I always say just follow those stations as they come on. Spend that minute to 2 minutes in that area and really just observe where the water's going. Some people still have lawns. Make sure that those sprinkler pop-ups are popping up. If they don't pop up, then you have a pressure problem. And that could be signs that there's leaks somewhere else. And that is where it becomes such a water waste. If you have any breaks or leaks, look for shading or darkening areas in your rock mulch. If you have, after you run a cycle where your rocks have actually changed colors, then you may have a broken line underneath and you don't see pooling water. You just see the change and those rocks kind of get a little moist under there. So you really do need to take the time and look around.
Fixing your irrigation system, replacing drip emitter heads, those are all very affordable types of repairs. And making those affordable types of repairs and having that awareness and checking your irrigation system is more cost efficient than it is having to replace dying plants or other kinds of replacement that you might have to do, right? So I really appreciate that you bring up some of those good tips for people.
I do want to add, not all drip emitters are the same. Every type of drip emitter has a different purpose. We, as humans, are thirsty. So we like to see that big spider fountain out of an adjustable emitter. But not every plant requires that much water. Drip emitters, that irrigation system is under a reduced pressure. There's a pressure compensator. It brings the PSI down so that water comes through these very, very small 1/4-inch poly tubing. At the end, that emitter has an output. It is by gallons per hour. So understanding the type of plant, the type of soil that you have will determine which emitter you use. In our desert environment, a lot of areas have high clay, compacted soil. If we lower the amount of water that comes out at a time, you put the water out slowly at a longer rate, that soil has the opportunity to kind of push its way down, start to absorb. If we get 4-gallon per hour emitters, because we just want to throw that water out at the base of the plant, and we just put out 4 gallons within 60 minutes, we're going to have a puddle. Understanding the type of emitter is really important. I always recommend a pressure compensating emitter. It's got the ability to keep your pressure the same throughout the whole line, so that when you're doing your walkabout and you notice, well, my gosh, you know what? I have all the same emitters on there, but the emitter that's the closest to the valve, it's coming out and it's perfect. But by 10 feet down my line, I have barely any water coming out. It might be the type of emitter that you're using. And so if you use a pressure compensating, that emitter is going to hold that same pressure throughout the whole line of the irrigation. And that helps distribute the water evenly and also be more efficient. And you'll have less plants struggling and dying at the end of the line. Every plant on the line is going to react differently, but that's a sure sign that your emitters are clogged or your pressure is off.
Joey, Lynn, you brought up a couple of things. First, I just want to say, well, that was a really interesting point. I've never heard that about drip emitters, and now I'm going to go check mine. But we also have a lot of information about drip emitters and drip systems on our website at snwa.com to help people understand a little bit different about whether you have a low flow emitter, a high flow emitter, and some general times of how much you should run your irrigation system depending on which type of emitters you have. And then I also wanted to say I'm a big proponent of the smart irrigation controller. I have one. And today, for instance, it's raining and I already got an email from the manufacturer saying we've stopped watering for the day because your soils had enough water. So I love that. I even got one for my parents and I can control their smart controller on my app. So I do their watering for them. It's really nice. They appreciate that. But going back to the soil amendments, can you talk a little bit more about that? You know, what kind of nutrients do plants need? And does it depend on what type of plant you have, what you're giving it?
Absolutely. The soil is the foundation. The irrigation is the necessary water source, which every plant and every living thing needs water. However, in order to retain that water, the soil needs to have a good balance of organic matter, sand, some clay to hold on to nutrients, some rocks to add some oxygen in there. In the desert, we lack organic matter. A lot of our soil is in certain areas of the valley, very, very high clay content. Some other areas, it's very, very sandy. Even some areas have a really high water table and it's very soggy. So amending your soil is something that should be done regardless of where you are in this valley seasonally. And we always like to recommend that you do it prior to that season. We use every 3-day holiday weekend to remind you. You think about it, it's that 3-day weekend is really right before the kickoff of the next season. So spring, if we can get our soil to have a good balance of organic matter is the stuff that decomposes. And since we're a dry, arid desert, we don't have years and years of forest that's been defoliating and just decomposing and creating this ability to absorb and retain water. So we have to add it manually. In that brings our decomposing elements, our leaves, our decomposing insects, our worms, even our scorpions. They do a lot to get around and kind of move that soil. So in our dry desert, as the season comes in the summer and the sun beats down and it's dry, the salts come up. They create this caked layer that the only way to counter that is with organic matter. So a good organic mulch or a compost, we have a whole line of Star Nursery Dr. Q brand soils that have been formulated for the desert Southwest. Believe it or not, we use a lot of cinder. That's like a coal burnt down product from wood parts, not just big wood chips. Big wood chips in the dry desert are very, very hard for microbes to kind of break down. So we got to make these little mixes and composts that are already starting to break down. And we add that to our soil. When we add that, it actually, over a long period of time, will change the pH. Because we have a lot of alkaline in our soil here in the desert Southwest, that translates into high salt content, which means that our pH is high. And so we need to lower that. Adding amendments helps. You can use a soil sulfur in addition to a good organic mulch. Soil sulfur is great for long term because eventually it will break down. But I personally love everybody to use an acidifier. So the acidifier will neutralize the pH, bringing the pH to a neutral level temporarily, allowing that nutrient, which is iron attached to it, to start to transport through the plant and improve the leaf quality. And then at that same time, stimulate the roots, kind of wake them up a little bit, add a very low nitrogen fertilizer. That nitrogen is the chemical trigger to tell the plant to start to put on some leaf growth. And once the plant reacts with some leaf, then we have this perfect relationship between leaf and photosynthesis and root growth and this back and forth of water and nutrients. So it is absolutely part of the spring season to get organic matter in the soil, follow up with something to lower the pH. Then we give a nice light nitrogen. Fruiting plants like our fruit trees, they should have been fertilized when they got pruned at the end of January. If you did not, adding just a nice low nitrogen, high phosphorus for your fruits. Flowers, same thing. You want to focus on that phosphorus. That's the second number in fertilizer. And evergreen trees and a little bit hardier of desert plant, you can go with a desert food. But desert trees really don't need a lot of nitrogen. They're going to pull nitrogen in from the atmosphere. Right now, you'd kind of focus on getting rose and flower food down, getting those flowers to start to bud and wake up from their slumber.
Okay, so we've talked about irrigation, cleaning up your trees, pruning, and adding nutrients to the soil. So we're feeling pretty prepared for spring and summer upon us, at least I am. But as temperatures start to climb, what else should homeowners be watching for, Joey Lynn? What are some common problems you see this time of year? And what do you recommend people do to tackle those issues before they get out of hand?
If you have a plant that was struggling last fall, it's stunted or it has just a leaf that has burnt tips or even spots and speckles on them, that's typically due to the stressed out soil that it's under and lack of nutrient absorption. Those issues are going to just continue. So now's the time, and spring is going to be a little short, I think. I think we're going to get hit pretty quickly. So right now, I want you to observe the quality of the leaf. If the quality of the leaf on new growth is subpar, then you're continuing a problem that's been brewing for a while. So walking around, checking your trees, especially after windy springs. If you have broken branches, that all needs to be removed because that hot summer wind that comes and we have damaged branches in our trees, that's when we get the potential for whole branch failure and that tearing that happens. You're looking for any damage to bark on any tree right now or any shrub. You know, shrubs get diseases too. Shrubs get sooty canker. Sooty canker is a fungal spore. And when the spring is here and we get those spring rains followed by the spring winds, that just takes that spore from one tree or one plant to the next. So we want to make sure that we don't see any damaged bark or diseased powdery substance on our shrubs like roses. If you look at your roses now and they have, it looks like a powder, that could be powdery mildew. Powdery mildew is a fungus that also blows in the wind. So we want to tackle that as well. Spring is a great time to use copper fungicide. Read the label. There's a sulfur fungicide as well. They have it in a powder form. So for your cacti, if you're seeing any black spots that are soft on any of your desert plants, even at the root system, you want to get a powdered sulfur fungicide or sulfur soil on those plants immediately and get that pumping through the system to fight off any diseases. Soggy soils promote fungus in our desert plants. So if you have a soil that is wet because you're watering multiple variety of plants, like a privet on the same line that you have a cactus and you have water building up under that soil, you're going to have problems with your cactus. Finally is burnt leaves, dead branches. If you have a plant that's been struggling for years and you're like, I've done everything that they say, then that plant just may not be the proper plant in the right place. It could be a plant that has been exposed to the afternoon sun for only 3 years and it's completely run out of energy to try to heal itself. And that should be removed and reconsidered.
I'm glad you brought that up. I've talked to you before about my sad little struggling privet tree in my front yard. It definitely has disease. It's got a lot of woody branches that seem to appear. They don't have any new growth on them. I've constantly worked to trim them back. And you mentioned that sometimes these trees and plants that we have are just struggling and we might have to make that hard decision. But I guess my question is simply like, when is it time for me to let my privet go? When is it time for us to make those decisions that we need to go ahead and remove this tree, remove this plant, and let's get something in there that can be healthy and maybe more adapted to our climate?
Well, that's the thing. We want everything to thrive. The plant itself wants to thrive. The plant does not want you to continue to say, well, I'm going to give you one more year, Bronson, because you have worked so hard. I'm just going to try. No, that's not how plants work. The plant's response is a seasonal thing. If you have multiple seasons that plant does not repair itself, then you are wasting energy and water, and you're putting either pesticides in there if you don't quite know whether it's a disease or if it's an insect. And so those all have long-term effects. And the plant itself depletes the soil of its nutrients as well if it's constantly stressed out. So a plant should be replaced if it is under constant pressure from the elements, and it is a plant that does not really belong there. Now, don't get me wrong. I love having versatility. I love people trying new things in their environment, bringing things into their life that makes them happy. But if a plant is not putting on leaf growth every season that it's supposed to, so it comes back to knowing that plant. So your privet should put on a spring leaf flush and a fall leaf flush. If you have more leaf drop than you do new leaf growth, then you don't have a good balance of root growth and leaf production. That's both necessary. Every plant should have the space to grow. So a lot of these plants that are in these very, very narrow, between two driveways in the front yard, they're crammed in there. They can't grow in that area. They shouldn't be there in the first place. And so if they're not able to put on a big canopy, then they should be removed. No tree wants to struggle. No plant wants to struggle. It has a job to do. It knows what its job is. So really getting to know why the plant isn't functioning helps you to know if you need to remove it or not. But there are amazing natives or desert adaptive plants that give you that same kind of benefit. And that should help relieve the stress of having to get rid of a plant and replace it.
Great insights. It is stressful trying to make that decision as to whether or not you need to remove and replace a plant or a tree. And this isn't just anecdotal. I mean, the SNWA back in 2017 did a heat vulnerability analysis where we looked at some of the most popular trees and plants that we have within our community. And we were able to identify that as our climate warms, some of these most popular trees and plants are not going to be able to adapt to that warmer, drier future ahead. So being mindful about your landscaping, having to make those hard decisions going forward, the folks at Star Nursery available to help, the folks at the Gardens at the Springs Preserve available to help. We also have our plant search on snwa.com, as well as the regional plant list where you can get even more insights into the right trees and plants. Joey Lynn, before we let you go, one more question for you. If you were recommending your most favorite tree or plant, if you give us like your top 3 that you would recommend people put into their front yards or backyards, and I know there's a lot of elements here. Do you want shade? Do you want color? Do you want blooms? But what would be your top 3 recommendations for our listeners?
My number 1 is the Texas mountain laurel. I love that little plant. Now, that plant is a slow grower. It takes a while for it to get established, but it can absolutely tolerate our full sun. It can tolerate some periods of drought. It does not like to have a lot of water. It gives you a beautiful spring payoff with its nice cascading purple, very fragrant flowers. Smells like Tutti Frutti or Grape Crush. It's a fragrant, beautiful plant. I really do love the Texas mountain laurel. The tree I really don't think gets enough recognition is the bottle tree. I enjoy the bottle tree. It's soft. You know, the leaves just kind of twinkle and it just gives you that little song that a leaf does. It's just a really great plant. It doesn't have a huge invasive root system. So it is something that can be planted in a smaller footprint, but it likes very, very infrequent, well-drained water. And I don't think it gets enough credit. And it's one of those plants too that some varieties really, really do photosynthesize through their bark. So they're very, very green. They just glisten. I love that. And as far as flowers, I love the gazania. I love the Perky Sue, too. She is fabulous. Now, she's pretty naughty in the way that she doesn't want to stay within her garden space. So she will kind of trail and you'll see her offshoots elsewhere, but she's a happy little daisy-looking thing, too. And I also want to say that these new ground covers, the emus, are brilliant. They are fabulous. There's winter blaze. There's blue. You can have an emu that is blooming every season. Some in the wintertime get as tall as 3 feet and just cascade these beautiful trumpets. And the pollinators and the hummingbirds love them. So the emu is a fabulous ground cover. Very reliable. Love them.
Well, Joey Lynn, that is a lot of great information, all good options from the experts at Star Nursery. And don't forget, if you want to dig a little bit deeper into this, you can visit our website at snwa.com, explore that plant list tool. You can find lots of helpful information. You can visit the Springs Preserve, and of course, you can visit our friends over at Star Nursery, where Joey Lynn, Dr. Q, and the entire Star Nursery team is extremely helpful. They are always willing to answer your questions and direct you to what will be the best plants to fit your landscape. Joey Lynn, thank you so much for joining us here on the Water Smarts podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. And don't forget, if you have chronic issues in your yard and you need a diagnostic service, I make house calls. So visit any Star Nursery location to purchase your house call in advance, and then we will come out. Dr. Q, myself, we can come out and we can take a look and see why you're continuously having these problems and get to the bottom of it and help you have a flourishing backyard and really just be able to enjoy your environment and your landscape.
An amazing personalized service coming from you, from your friends at Star Nursery. Thanks so much, Joey Lynn.
Thank you.
Crystal, love having Joey Lynn on. A lot of great information there, especially for those of us that care about what our outdoor spaces look like, right?
Yeah, it can be confusing for a lot of people, even just when she was talking about drip irrigation. I know that a lot of landscapes now, probably a majority of landscapes, are drip irrigated.
Yep.
I think a lot of people don't really get down there and see what they are. You know, you have a landscaper install it, or it was already landscaped when you move into your house. And so it's really getting, like Joey Lynn said, outside and just kind of walking around and checking things out and just paying a little extra attention to it.
I really think that's one of the best things you can do. Turn that irrigation system on, check those drip emitters. You know, some areas of my yard, I can't even see the drip emitter because I've got a rock ground covering. And so I have to kind of dig down in there a little bit. I can hear it, and eventually I can find it and make sure that those are working properly. I guess the other thing is, like, this can feel a little overwhelming, but the reality is this is a Saturday morning, right? This is a Sunday morning type of activity that you can do. Turn that sprinkler clock onto a manual runtime, walk around, check all of those plants. You got those plants that are struggling. You can get that professional assistance from a local nursery like Star Nursery, or even our friends over at the Springs Preserve. And you actually get a little bit of satisfaction when you're done with that. And you either make that repair or change that sprinkler head or that bubbler head, or make that transition from maybe a plant that is struggling to now a new plant that's going to bring some new vibrancy into your life, right? Or into your yard, I guess, more so than your life. Yeah.
Yes, that for sure. But all good things. So I was going to say, too, there are just a lot of free resources. We have resources at snwa.com, including how to get a rebate for a smart irrigation controller if you are interested in upgrading to one. We have all kinds of information about plants and trees and which ones are desert appropriate and will be able to tolerate our drought conditions and our high temperatures. We have a lot of irrigation tips. So the information is there, and springspreserve.org as well. Great resource, as well as Star Nursery.
That is right. You value your property, you want to maintain that investment. Your landscaping and maintaining that curb appeal is one of the easiest, most affordable ways to do that. And that's it for this episode here on the Water Smarts Podcast. We hope you subscribe and listen next time. And if you like the show, hey, feel free to give us a rating. It helps us reach more Southern Nevadans. And if you want more information on conservation, water quality, new technologies, even rebate programs like our Smart Irrigation Clock program, visit us at snwa.com. That's snwa.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you join us here next time on Water Smarts.